2006 Colorado. Lisko was drunk for 3 days after his father's funeral, and now he has a splitting headache. After a few swigs of coffee, he rubs his temples and lies in contemplation in front of his fireplace. Fate, it's really unpredictable. The sunlight passed through the gap in the windowsill and sprinkled on his fair-side face. A flaxen hair was standing in a mess, and a few playful ones were curled up. He got out of bed. He was 1.8 meters tall, his six-pack abdominal muscles were shining brightly. He opened the door, went to the bathroom, and his bladder was released all night. It's comfortable. He squinted his eyes, shook his wit, and came to the mirror. His face was carved with distinct features, with edges and corners, and was unusually handsome. On the outside, it seems to be unrestrained, but the inadvertent light in his eyes makes people dare not look down. Under the pair of sword eyebrows are a pair of slender peach blossom eyes, full of passion. People will fall into it if they are not careful. The tall nose and the moderately thick red lips are now swaying with a dazzling smile. Who would have thought that a dead old fat man could be reborn as a star? He rubbed his face and recalled his experience. It has been half a month since he came to this world. That's right, our Lisko is a transmigration person. Before transmigration, he was a small screenwriter of a domestic film and television company. He doesn't know the reason for transmigration. It's a little joke, anyway. Before he crossed, he only knew how to code words at home. Without parents and friends, there is no worse situation, right? He is quite satisfied with his current situation. His great-grandfather is Chinese and his grandfather is half Chinese and Jewish. He is a 22-year-old Yale graduate and a professional writer. After graduation, he has published 2 books. The first, Blood Road, is a book describing the events of Chinese workers going to the United States to build a railway in 1865, won the American Book Review Award. The second book, Red Diamond, describes the history of the blood and tears of diamond workers, and was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature, but narrowly defeated the German writer. Simply a winner in life. His ancestors ran a ranch in Colorado. His great-grandfather Li Duo smuggled here and used his life savings to buy a 100 mu small ranch. After several generations of efforts, it was expanded to 3,000 mu. His great-grandfather and great-grandmother died early due to poor health, and Lisko's mother passed away shortly after his birth. During the financial crisis not long ago, his father went bankrupt and was forced to sell his ancestral Li's ranch. Not long after his father died in depression, Lisko was thinking about his own way out after dealing with his father's funeral. Yesterday, the lawyer had read his father's will. Before he died, the most unforgettable thing was his own ranch. Lisko had already entrusted a lawyer to buy it at a premium, and it would be dealt with soon if he wanted to. The 2 books published by Lisko have brought him a lot of fame and a huge income, and now he is worth over $100 million. After a few days of running in, the memories of him and the original body have merged, but after all, in his previous life, he was a Chinese who had never been abroad in his life, and all his habits were out of tune with the previous ones. In order to avoid the flaws of friends and colleagues, he decided in order to move back to his own ranch to live, firstly, to complete his father's request, and secondly, his work can be done anywhere, and no one is disturbed in the ranch, which is more suitable for writing. Lisko discovered after crossing the road that his memory is like a fish jumping out of a fish tank and swimming towards the sea. He can even remember the incident when he was bitten by a little neighbor girl when he was 7 months old in his previous life. Novels, film, and television dramas remember clearly, and found that some famous works and classic literature in the modern history of this world have disappeared, so he does not have much doubts about this. After all, every traveler is loved by the world. He got up, put on a slender trench coat, and walked out of the hotel. Garrison Town is a small town in the Grand Junction district. His ancestors have settled here for nearly 200 years. He also spent his childhood here, until he went to New York for high school, and now he has not come back for 8 or 9 years. Hey, Mark Twain, Hey, Uncle Dale. Dale is the veterinarian in the town. He and Lisko's father are playmates growing up together. Since Lisko came back to town, everyone called him Mark Twain, mainly because the cowboys were not interested in reading. They knew the greatest writer of all time was Mark Twain. You know, Sco, I'm very sorry for Tem's death. We were good brothers, but Sco, we should look forward. The dead will die. Lisko was silent for a while. I understand, Dale. I've decided to buy back the farm and settle in Garrison. I've already started buying Lee's ranch, and of course it's now called Damn Pony Jessamyn's Ranch. Sco, you are the best person we have in Colorado since Nikola Tesla. Reagan, I mean you are from us Garrison, this is your hometown, we will support you. Thank you, Dale. I'm going to Maggie's. Do you want a drink? No, I won't go. The stingy Bo's calf is sick again. Damn, he would never spend $200 to inject vitamins into that calf. Lisko patted his shoulder and waved goodbye. Pushing the door open, there was a burst of laughter in the bar. Lisko walked to the bar. Maggie. Wow, Mark Twain, Lisko, it's been a long time since I saw you, you are great now. After the two embraced, they sat down separately. Maggie is the wife of a farm blogger, and now she runs the only bar in the town. Lisko lost his mother when he was a child, and his only little maternal love is from Maggie. Lisko, you were busy on the day of the funeral and didn't have time to say hello. How are you now? Maggie poured a glass of whiskey, wiped the glass. I'm fine, how are you doing? Is it the same with Bo? You know, it's still the same. Bo and your father reconciled. On the night your father sold the ranch, they were very drunk, and the two quarreled because of their different views on the Vietnam War. They didn't communicate for decades. Didn't see it before, of course. I mean you've always been good, but I was taken aback when I saw you being interviewed on TV. Never thought you'd be this good. The bar was full of people that day. You cheer, they call you son of Garrison. Lee K smiled. Although the memories had merged, he still felt a little strange, as if she was talking about another person, and his heart was not fluctuating. What about Colt? Where have you been recently? The last time I heard about him was that he was playing in the league in Canada, and then I heard that he was fired. Anyway, it's been like this for so many years, and Bo and I got used to it. Bo is a rancher in a small town, an out-of-the-ordinary old cowboy with a strong personality and a stern personality. His ranch was just a little bigger than Lisko. His eldest son, Rooster, ran the ranch with him, and Maggie was his wife. The two have been separated for 4 or 5 years. His second son, a rugby player who played at a third-tier club, also hadn't returned for many years. After Lisko had a glass of wine, he received a call from the lawyer and redeemed the Lee's ranch for $7 million. Lisko found a service company to manage the farm cleanup and renovation, and at the same time entrusted a lawyer to dispose of some fixed assets invested in New York. The time soon came to the next day. Lisko got up early, had a casual breakfast, and then took out 2 bottles of Jack Daniel's whiskey from the luggage he brought back, which his manager gave him when he was nominated for Nobel. Jack Daniel's, one of the oldest wine producers in the United States, is a top whiskey brand, brewed from rye, corn, and malt. Since it is stored in carbonized white oak barrels, it will smell like a paint-like barrel after opening the bottle. As for the taste, Jack Daniel's is heavy, and many people like to drink it with cola to reconcile the original heavy taste. Lisko took out the gift box, packed it, and fastened a beautiful cable tie. He went downstairs and picked a pickup Chevrolet in the garage. Bo was an old-fashioned farmer, serious, never used to look at other cars. Cowboy thinking made him think other cars were limp cars. After driving along the road for half an hour, a slightly quaint gate appeared. Bo, I'm here to see you. Lisko stopped the car and shouted at the door, the castle law in the United States is not a joke. If you enter someone's home without permission, they really have the right to shoot you. Soon, a man in his 50s who had trimmed his beard came out. He was wearing a denim jacket with pockets and some new denim shoes on his feet. Plum, Bo stepped forward and hugged Lisko. "Welcome back, will you buy your father's ranch back?" Of course, Lisko knew what he meant. Good. Boy Bo was even more satisfied. Lisko handed him 2 bottles of wine, Jack Daniels. "I specially kept it. I wanted to give it to my father. Now you can try it for him." Bo took the whiskey and looked at the packaging carefully, with a smile between his eyebrows. "Come in, go in, I just made steak." Lisko followed him to the dining table. The stainless steel hood was lifted, and there was a particularly large steak inside. The aroma was overflowing. Lisko also picked up the knife and fork to enjoy the food. After dinner, Lisko took out a special Cuban cigar. These cigars were gifts he received in the literature club. In the United States, there are many relationships in a circle. When he was studying in New York, he was introduced by his tutor and entered a club dedicated to the literature department of Yale University. Of course, his age, he was easily nominated for the Nobel Prize for Literature, and his relationship with the club was also helpful. After all, in this world, you are not guaranteed to be talented if you are talented. Bo took a deep breath. "Great cigar, I haven't smoked such an authentic cigar for a long time." Lisko smiled and began to say his purpose. "Bo, I just bought back the Lee's Ranch with 7 million, and I plan to settle here in the future, but you know, although I grew up on the ranch, I used to be a nerd and didn't know anything about the ranch." Bo listened and motioned him to continue. "So, I wondered if I could find a rooster to help me. After all, he has been managing the pasture for you for more than 10 years. Bo thought for a while. "The rooster is not good enough, he will screw it up." Lisko was a little anxious. "Bo, the rooster is 30 years old. How old is he? The chicks always go out and fly. Let him try." Bo still shook his head and refused. Lisko was a little disappointed. The rooster grew up with him. Although it was a little unreliable, he was still very skilled at work. He had to get up and leave and find another way. Lisko received the lawyer who handled the acquisition in the afternoon, processed all the documents to be signed, and took stock of his current assets. "Mr. Lisko, at present your assets are as follows. There is a villa near New York University with 3 cars in it, with a total value of $30 million. It has now changed hands at a price of $45 million, and the proceeds have been transferred to your Citibank account. Spent $7 million to acquire Lee's Ranch, and Random House has brought in your $36 million in royalties from the last quarter. Your investment company owns 3.5% of Google and 7% of Oracle, Intel 0.7%, Microsoft 3%, Apple 3%, Ant Bank 15%, LinkedIn 7.3%, Citibank account balance of $325.27 million. Lisko listened to the financial staff's report and felt that his current asset investment was reasonable. He knocked on the table. Investment companies go to rabbit country to open mainland offices, and give priority to companies under investment. Lisko picked up a pen and wrote down some company names. When investing, communicate well. We can provide them with help in listing. Don't seek rights. We are doing angel investment. We just want to make a profit by listing, and we can hand over the shares to the company's existing chairman for escrow." The financial staff quickly informed the order. Lisko was lying on the sofa alone, with a smile on his lips. "It's great to be reborn, one-handed king." Lisko drove to the Lee's Ranch. There was a sign on the door that was somewhat playful, "Pony Jasmine Ranch." He pouted, picked up the stone from the side of the road, smashed it in 3 or 2, opened the door. Lisko stood at the door, looked at the familiar plants and trees inside, and sighed. This is the inheritance of his ancestors for generations. Now take it back, take good care of it, don't ask for money here, just keep running it for your own use. He walked forward and saw his villa. The villa has 3 floors. The first floor is the living room, kitchen, and gym. There are 5 bedrooms on the second floor, and a garden on the top floor. He picked up the phone. Hey, David, come over here. David was a cowboy in his 40s who made a living doing odd jobs on the ranch in town. Maggie introduced him to Lisko, who soon decided to hire him as a ranch worker, signed a contract, and Joe. $700 salary. Clean up the pasture, change the signboard, and then see what you need, and give me a list. In the future, the pasture will mainly plant grass, raise dozens of cows, buy a few quark horses, and leave a field to grow vegetables. All are planted with lavender, and the lake is filled with fish. David took out the notebook and thought about it. Boss, the pasture needs a bale machine, the cattle pen needs to be repaired, the gate needs to be repaired, and 2 pickups are needed. Lisko waved his hand. Go ahead and give me the bill then. He went to the townhouse to get his luggage, returned to the ranch, put the books from the club seniors into the study, took out the special laptop given to him by Apple, and made a pot of tea, which he specially made. He went to Chinatown to buy it. Biluakun was worth more than $10, the kind he liked most at home in his previous life. Comfortable. Lisko was basking in the sun and rocking on the reclining chair. The carefree life here was really a day he had dreamed of for a long time, and the nerves that had been tense until now were relaxed. Soon he fell asleep with the shaking. When he woke up and covered himself with a quilt, he opened his eyes to see that Jasmine was busy in the kitchen. Jasmine, Lisko called out, Boss, would you like to eat steak at night? Jasmine quickly turned around and asked that Jasmine was David's wife, and Lisko asked her to take care of her own food and hygiene in the future, and she was also assigned a room in the staff dormitory in the ranch. The staff quarters were built after the former rancher took over from Lisko's father. It's okay, thank you for the blanket. Lisko didn't have much pursuit of what to eat. And on the ranch, most ranchers eat steak. He made up his mind that next time he goes to Chinatown, he must buy some ingredients to make some Chinese food himself, and eat the same thing every day. Everyone will be bored. Lisko went upstairs to take a shower, feeling cool all over. As soon as he went downstairs, he saw the rooster come in. Hey, brother, the and Lisko had a chest bump. They hadn't seen each other in a long time since Lisko High School left town. The rooster is now 30 years old, and has all the characteristics of an American man, a big belly, a thick whisker, and slightly curly hair. Brother, I heard that you want me to help you manage the ranch. As soon as the rooster sat down, he hurriedly asked. Lisko took out a bottle of beer from the refrigerator and handed it over. He knew it was the rooster's favorite. Yes. You know I don't know anything about ranching. My main occupation is a writer. I'm currently working on a book to hit Nobel again. He took a sip of beer and rammed the rooster. I will mainly maintain the subsequent ranch. For my own needs, I want to develop it into a family ranch, grow some non-GMO vegetables and grains, brew some extra beer, and raise dozens of cows. But you know, Bo refused. Got me. The rooster took another sip of wine. He has always treated me like a child. Seeing him like this, Lisko persuaded him, Bo is for your own good, why don't you discuss it with Maggie? The rooster nodded silently. The next day, as soon as Lee K woke up from his sleep, he was stunned by the rush of phone calls. Hey, I'm a rooster. Maggie persuaded Bo that I can go to work at your place. Now should I call you boss? Lisko's spirit came. Really? Great, I need you to take over many things here. Today you go to David and go to the cattle auction. This is what you are good at. Of course, please have your check ready, I will come home full of rewards. Lisko teased a few words on the phone, and he was also in a happy mood. With such a huge farm, he never knew where to start. Now that a familiar childhood friend came to help him, he could breathe a sigh of relief. Going downstairs, eating a sandwich made by Jasmine and ham, and drinking a glass of milk, Lisko also felt full of energy. He came to the study, opened the notebook, and looked at the words "Welcome to the writer Lee" in the startup animation. Lisko was also a little surprised by Apple's sincerity. Opening the document, Lisko put his hands on his chin, thinking about how to start his new book. His first 2 books have made him famous in the world of literature, but the time is still short. He has just touched the top of the circle, and now he needs a book that can help him stand firm. Let his background increase again. After thinking for a long time, he reached out and typed the title of the book, The Catcher in the Rye. Holden is a 16-year-old boy from the wealthy middle class. After being expelled from school for the 4th time, he did not dare to go home rashly. He wandered for a day and 2 nights in New York City, the most prosperous city in the United States, living in a small inn. Going to nightclubs, having promiscuous girlfriends, drinking too much. He saw all the ugliness of capitalist society and met all kinds of characters, most of them fake models, hypocrites. Holden can hardly see what is happening around him. He even wants to escape from this real world and go to the back country to pretend to be a deaf and dumb person, but it is impossible to do so. As a result, he can only live in among the contradictions. He hated movies the most in his life, but he had to spend time in the movie theater when he was bored. He hated without love, but he called prostitutes in a confused way. He hated his vain and vulgar girlfriend Sally, but he was infatuated with her beauty, and couldn't help hugging her. Therefore, although he is not used to the world, he has to feel depressed and panic, comfort himself with all kinds of unrealistic fantasies, deceive himself, and finally compromise with the real society and cannot become a real rebellion. This can be said to be Holden's Where the Tragedy Lies. This book has a high status in the literary world. Anger and anxiety are the 2 major themes of this book. The audience is teenagers and can resonate with them. Lisko's first 2 books were both aimed at adults. This time, starting with teenagers, he can expand his influence and stabilize his status, and the literary quality of this book can also bring him rewards in terms of awards. After Lisko made up his mind, his fingers were flying. Thanks to the favor of time travel, he also read many world-famous novels when he was a young literary man, and now he recalls every word and sentence very clearly. Soon, the time passed in the enrichment of the code words. Lisko looked at the progress and found that 1/5 of it was completed. After all, he was a copywriter, so he didn't need to think too much. He stretched his waist, stretched his muscles and bones, and was ready to go out for a walk. Various diseases in his previous life had taught him a lesson. Good health is the capital of everything, but he is still very satisfied with his current 22-year-old body. He walked downstairs slowly, poured a glass of warm water, and saw Jasmine busy on the side of the yard. "Hey! Jasmine, what are you doing?" Jasmine turned around, sweat stained on her forehead. "Boss, I'm growing some greens, lettuce, and carrots. I'm done." Lisko saw that there was really nothing to help, so he got up and went to the garage, picked up the options, drove a Chevrolet SUV, and went to town. In the town, the tavern was still so lively. Lee came at a bunch of greetings as soon as he opened the door. "Hey, Mark Twain! Welcome back, little cowboy." "Lee, do you need a cowboy?" A bunch of middle-aged American men with big belly opened their mouths one after another. Lisko waved to the surroundings. "Everyone, a glass of beer per person, I'll treat you." "Oh! Oh! Oh!" When the drunkards heard it, they clapped the table, and Lisko wanted to shake his legs when he heard this rhythm. Maggie laughed and scolded, and then served glasses of beer. Then she first picked up a glass and handed it to Lisko, and then raised it herself. "Respect Litham." The bar suddenly became quiet, and everyone raised their glasses. "Respect Tum." Lisko drank it with everyone. Maggie's beer was brewed with wheat from Bo's farm. It was slightly bitter, but unexpectedly mellow. "I heard that it was inherited from Maggie's father's craftsmanship. Her father back then, they secretly brewed wine on the west coast for those gold diggers." Maggie invited Lisko to come and sit at the bar, poured another glass of wine for Lisko. Sko, thank you for giving the rooster a job. Lisko replied quickly, no, no, I want to thank him for helping me. You know, if he didn't help me, I might not have the confidence to run the ranch. Bo always regarded him as a child, afraid that he would break his reins. He always regarded his child as a cow in the pasture. So Colt was always reluctant to come back. Lisko didn't know how to reply to this kind of family matter, so he had to raise a glass to toast Maggie. After chatting with the alcoholics for a while at the bar, Lisko got up and went out to the pet shop in the town. Today, he plans to buy a pet and go back home. Living alone is a bit lonely. The pet industry in the United States is very developed, and you can buy all kinds of pets here. And many Americans consider pets their family. Lisko pushed open the door and saw Gorley busy at a glance. This is his junior high school classmate and Colt's first love. Gory. Gorley raised her head and suddenly smiled. Look who this is, the great writer Mark Twain. I heard that you are back. How is it? Has the town changed a lot? Lisko shrugged. Nothing has changed. It's still so quiet, life is so slow, people are enjoying life. Unlike in the city, white-collar workers who run with bags are the most common. Gorley came over and hugged him. I heard you plan to settle here. Of course, my ancestors are here. Have you been in touch with Colt recently? Gorley's eyes suddenly dimmed. I'm getting married soon. The last time I contacted him was 2 years ago. I heard that he was about to enter the first team, and then I read the news that he had a fight and was expelled from the club, so there is no news. Lisko quickly changed the subject. Are you going to get married? When? Gorley smiled. It will take a few more months. We just discussed and decided to get married. Wow, very happy. What does he do? A lawyer. Gorley looked happy. He works at the Diskenk law firm. Lisko blessed her. I'm here today to choose a pet. You know, I live alone and I'm always a little lonely. When it comes to her major, Gorley started to get serious. What do you like? I want a dog. Be nice. Gorley thought for a while, then Yu read www.yuyuganshu.com walked into the kennel and chose a small black and silver dog. This is a Schnauzer, a German dog, a cross between a German poodle and a wire-haired Doberman flat dog, best suited to the farmer. He was bred for nurseries and rat traps, healthy, intelligent, loyal, no hair loss, no body odor. Lisko was a little satisfied as soon as he heard that there was no hair loss. He took a closer look and saw that the dog had a very cool appearance, with eyes that looked very lively, with the same ears, with pointed horns pointing upwards. Lisko thought for a while. It's called McGonagall. As soon as Gorley heard it, he started packing. Lisko then picked out the dog food, the reins, the kennel, and the dog manual that Gorley wrote to him. After paying $500, Lisko got his wish and hugged Mag. In his arms ready to go home. On the way back, Lisko swayed while playing music. Mag looked around, looking a little confused when he was still young. Lisko got home, prepared the kennel and dog food, and gave him a bowl of warm water. Golly specifically explained that he could not be fed milk and meat for the first 2 months. Mag had just been born for more than a month. He sniffed the dog food in the rice bowl, and soon began to eat it happily. Lisko touched his soft head, and he was in a much better mood. He felt that the future life should be happy. A little. After working on Mag's business, Lisko went back upstairs and continued to work hard to code words. The full text of the book The Catcher in the Rye is only 160,000 words. He plans to finish it in the next few days, and he has already written part of it. I also sent it to my literary agent, who contacted Random House for publication. The specific royalties were also negotiated by them. The literary agent was also responsible for all kinds of copyright authorizations for writers. Lisko felt that this was much more convenient than doing it himself. Pay only a small percentage of the commission. Soon, the sky darkened. Lisko was very satisfied with the 45% copying progress that he had completed. After all, this is his old profession. Although it was a bit unfamiliar to change from Chinese to English, his tentacles were strange. The foundation is still there, this is the dignity of a writer. The rooster has returned in a hurry, and returned the remaining check. I bought 120 roosters, all of them are in good health, and they will be sent back later. Lisko brought him a bottle of beer and poured a glass of water himself. He never understood Americans' hobbies and regarded beer as his daily water. No wonder everyone has a big belly. I trust your vision. Have you bought everything the ranch wants to buy? The seeds are all bought, the bale machine is back, the pickup is ready, I bought it at Ruger's in town, I let the cowboys deal with the cow shed and the gate, it seems to be finished tomorrow, I'll go tomorrow. The skank went to buy a brewing machine, and we can plant the seeds the day after tomorrow. The wheat seed I bought this time is rye, and I heard that the wine it brews is better, and the rye bread is more expensive. Lisko patted the rooster on the shoulder, feeling more and more that it was a wise decision to pull him out of Bo's ranch. It's hard work. Go to the blogger's house to buy a cow, and then bring some wine. We'll have a patty tonight. The rooster drove back after drinking the beer. Lisko was standing in the garden on the third floor, watching the cars drive here. Everyone in the town had come to the party. The cowboys in the ranch were the first to arrive. They all brought their wives and children. There are currently 4 cowboys in the ranch besides the rooster. Only David and the rooster live in the ranch apartment. The others go back to town every day. Live at home. The 4 cowboys, David, Humble, Weiss, and Locke, were all recommended by Maggie. These 4 people grew up in the town. Boss, the cowboys say hello, go and help, let's have a barbecue today, the cowboys responded, and they all started busy. Stringing skewers, slaughtering cattle, setting wine, and building a bandstand. These things were all familiar to the Americans who met every 3 or 2 days. Lisko stood at the door to say hello. People familiar in the town heard that the patty was open here, and seemed to have come. Lisko had to say hello one by one. He saw that Bo and Maggie were helping the barbecue, and the veterinarian Dale who helped move the wine was already there. It started drinking, and there was Gory kissing in the corner with her lawyer fiancé in casual clothes, and the girls chattering around him. Lisko, I heard that you are very rich, right? Lisko, are you disappointed that you didn't win the Nobel ceremony? Lisko, is New York fun? Lisko was a little distressed. Being single, he seemed to be the prey of all the young women in the town, but he was still a Chinese man at heart, and he really had no interest in these American women with large pores and freckles. The rooster saw his embarrassment and pulled him out of the crowd. He finally breathed a sigh of relief and took a sip of his wine. Thank you, brother, Rooster laughed and teased him, you are a great writer, and you are so handsome, how can you still be single? I have some goals. I want to enjoy life after I conquer Nobel. The rooster clinks his glasses. Yes, Lisko had a headache when he saw the rooster that he had put off. After he crossed over, he sent a private investigator to investigate. There is no trace of his past life in this world. His parents, relatives, neighbors, and friends don't seem to exist. He was also lost for a long time before he adjusted. At present, he just wants to live a good life, enjoy life, and find a Chinese woman to marry and have children. Soon the party reached its climax. The black cowboy Weiss was rubbing music on the stage, people began to twist their bodies, and Lisko was squeezed into the crowd. He was surrounded by a group of women. Lisko was also moved by the atmosphere, and swayed with the music. At this moment, he also forgot his troubles, everyone was dancing and laughing. Lisko soon got a little drunk. He told the cowboys to clean up the wreckage, so he staggered upstairs, without even changing his clothes, he threw himself on the bed and fell asleep. The next day, Lisko was woken up by the sunlight, he rubbed his eyes and had a splitting headache. Struggling to go to the bathroom to wash up, only after cleaning did he feel refreshed, he threw the alcohol-stained bedding into the washing machine, and he changed into casual clothes and went downstairs. Jasmine was still busy in the kitchen as usual. She greeted Lisko when she came down. "Boss, I warmed up milk for you, and breakfast will be ready soon." Lisko sat down at the dining table and drank the milk first. The warm milk passed through his throat and flowed to his stomach. No, his frowning furrowed. He got up and found Mag in the kennel, added warm water to the dog food, touched his soft head, and went back to the dining table to open the newspaper. The newspaper industry in the United States is very developed, and Americans are accustomed to ordering newspapers. It has become a habit to browse newspapers when they have breakfast every morning. In the next few years, the rapid development of the Internet will still not cover up the market for newspapers, and of course there will be a decline. Lisko also followed the local customs and ordered several current affairs information. Damn it, another tax hike! Lisko saw the report in the center of the newspaper, and he became angry. In the United States, various taxes can really annoy people, and the collection is high. You pay for it for the rest of your life. Of course, the tax increase has little effect on Lisko. He is just habitually scolding the president and politicians in the American way of thinking. Lisko's industry has specialized financial personnel to avoid tax. By purchasing luxury accessories, donating, investing, and opening overseas branches, the tax rate is minimized. This is also a legal tax avoidance method for the rich in the United States. After breakfast, Lisko also started to work, beating quickly with both hands, and the progress was getting faster and faster. The melodious bell rang, and the Nokia N73 that Lisko put on the table lit up. This is the most popular style this year. Lisko suddenly remembered that he seemed to have a stake in Nokia, not much, only a few tenths of a percent. Lee SI section wrote it down and got rid of it by 2007. "Hey, Lisko, I have sent your new book to Langdon for review. How long will it take to finish?" Lisko glanced at the screen. "Half a month." "Okay, the publishing house is here to arrange the preparatory work. The editors have a high evaluation of this book. They are ready to contact the scholars of the liberal arts to study and prepare for next year's Nobel nomination." Lisko was not surprised by this result. The book The Catcher in the Rye was selected as a must-read book for American universities and high schools, leading the trend of literary creation at that time and affecting the lives of many people. Lee K., who hung up the phone, was full of enthusiasm and concentrated on typing. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com was very excited when he thought that he would win the highest award in literature. He didn't feel ashamed about the copying. "Instead of letting these famous novels disappear in my memory, it is better to use them to add luster to the world, not to mention that I copied them from foreign countries." Time passed quickly. Lisko worked non-stop after lunch, and finally finished his work in the evening. When he finished typing the last letter, he stretched, and he could rest for a while. He kept the documents properly and did not intend to give them to the agent immediately, otherwise he would not be able to explain the famous book he wrote in a few days. He made up his mind to rest well in the pasture. Today, the rooster has bought back the horses used for grazing in the pasture. Lisko decides to visit tomorrow. Speaking of which, he has lived in the city in his previous life and has never ridden a horse. "Ma, I also really want to experience the feeling of riding a horse in a martial arts novel." The time is spent in Scooby playing the dog. The next day, Lisko got up early with excitement and went to the stable. The horse shed was built along with the bullpen. There are 5 stalls in it. This time, I also bought 5 horses. These horses are all quarter horses used in ordinary pastures, and they are not of any precious blood. When Lisko arrived at the stables, the horses had arrived. They were calling for the cowboys to unload them. The rooster was drinking a pitcher while directing the cowboys. Lisko doesn't care about this kind of drinking at work, because in his impression, he knows that all cowboys work like this. He remembers that his father was very precious about his wine jug, and he accidentally touched it once. It was broken. My father was angry for a long time, until he used the royalties to buy a new one for his father as a Christmas present, and his father didn't let it go. Lisko looked at the group of horses. There was a white one. He stood by to measure it. The horse's back just reached his chest. He took 2 carrots from the side to feed the white horse, and he took the harness that had been prepared for a long time and put it on the horse. Of course, the things like being kicked by horses that everyone expects will not happen. The horses bought for grazing are all domesticated and docile horses. Although Lisko has never ridden a horse in his previous life, after the memory fusion, this body can be ridden a lot. As the son of a farmer, if he doesn't do this, he will be ridiculed. When he got up and mounted on his horse, Lisko began to shake the rope with his stomach in his belly. The white horse also began to move slowly. After walking forward a distance, he felt that his body memory had recovered, so he increased the strength of shaking the rope. Followed and ran. Da-da-da! As the horse's hooves stepped on the path of the pasture, Lisko was amazed by the sudden lowered gaze. The white horse was getting faster and faster. Lisko took the reins, and his upper body followed the horse's back. After running for a few laps, he began to relax his strength, and the horse also slowed down. Lisko got off the horse and brushed his hair with his hand, sweating from the excitement on his forehead. The rooster took the reins from his hand. It's been a long time since I rode, let's have a race someday. Ha! I'll be afraid of you. Did you forget that you played with me before, lost your pants, and came home from town naked? Lisko mocked the rooster with some contempt. Although the rooster took care of everything in the ranch very well, because he fell off his horse when he was a child, he no longer dared to run fast on a horse. Lisko played with the rooster for a while, then went back to the villa. After washing up and sweating from exercising, he packed up his things. Today, he is going out to attend the fundraising party held in the state. This was invited by Citibank. He thought it was unnecessary to go, and he was impatient to deal with those politicians. His agent advised him to live here in the future. To get to know everyone, get familiar with each other, and get in touch when you need someone for something. Lisko drives out of the garage his only sports car, which Random House gave him at the celebration of his second book selling over 1 million copies. This sports car is a Pagani Zonda, the body is black and red, the price of this car is $1 million, this FC12S 7.3 is 650 horsepower. Lisko wore an azure suit, which he custom-made for various banquets. He stepped on the accelerator, when buzzing the sports car's engine started working, and it blazed out in one fell swoop. It took 2 hours to run from the ranch to Denver, and Lisko was not bored with the music. After entering Denver, Lisko drove into Chinatown first, parked the car on the side of the street, and got out of the car. There are Chinese-style buildings all around, and Chinese signboards everywhere. People of the yellow race are bustling around here, and it really feels like returning to the country. He stopped and walked, listening to the local accent, and stopped at the grain and oil store. Pushing the door open, an uncle in his 50s was sitting at the door watching TV. "What do you want?" The uncle didn't even look up. "I want to buy some seasonings." "Yo, Americans!" The uncle is a little surprised. His small grain and oil shop is usually made by locals, or neighbors living near Chinatown. He is a little surprised to see a foreigner shopping, and he speaks fluent Chinese. "Talk. I studied in China." Lisko saw what the uncle meant. "My grandfather is Chinese." "That's my own person, let's see what to buy." Lisko was flipping through the shelves, looking for a lot of seasonings, mustard, seaweed, and various hot pot bases. Uncle helped to pack it in a bag, 2 extra large plastic bags. "Master, my name is Lisk, and I'll buy it after I finish eating." "Okay, when will you come?" The uncle has a special fondness for Lisko. "After many years abroad, I have seen many people with Chinese faces who can't speak Chinese. I have never seen anyone with a foreign face full of Mandarin. What's more, when I heard that Lisko's grandfather was a Chinese, I was even more excited. It has a hometown feel. Lisko said goodbye to the uncle, put his luggage in the co-pilot, and hurried to the pre-booked hotel. When he arrived at the hotel, Lisko ate a light meal by the way. When he was in school, he often accompanied his tutor to participate in these activities, as if these activities were not formal without inviting a few literati writers. In New York, almost every banquet was attended by writers. He is well aware of the process of these banquets. If he doesn't eat something to cushion himself, he will definitely be hungry at the banquet. After cleaning up, the night was getting darker. After Lisko took care of himself, he also drove to the lobby of the Hilton Hotel, where all kinds of luxury cars were already parked. Lisko handed over the invitation, signed his signature on the background wall, didn't stop there, and quickly entered the banquet. Lisko was stopped by someone as soon as he entered the hall. Lisko, a middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses, called him with a wine glass. "Brother," Lisko nodded. The man's name was Hallie. He was a student of Lisko's mentor, and he had published several books, often hovering in the top 10 bestseller lists in the United States. However, Lisko's mentor was full of opinions on him, thinking that Hallie was full of talent, and as a result, he always wrote some superficial romance novels. Hallie patted Lisko on the shoulder, turned around and took a glass of wine from the waiter and handed it over. "I heard that you plan to settle here." "Yes, I grew up in Garrison, and now I want to come back here to meditate and write." Lisko toasted him and answered. Hallie's face was full of envy. "Maybe you can win a Nobel before you are 30 years old. Although he gets more royalties for writing romance novels, as long as he is a writer, who doesn't want to touch the Nobel trophy, the highest honor in the literary world?" Lisko smiled implicitly. He still had the inherent humility of some Chinese people. "Have you seen your teacher recently? How dare I go? He scolded me for half an hour as soon as I entered the door last time." Hallie was a little helpless. Sko is not good at expressing his opinions. Although Harley has disappointed the teacher, he can't stop others from earning more money. From royalties, comic licensing, and film and television adaptations, he can earn a lot more than himself. And this kind of thing is also self-aware. Just fame and fortune, he chose profit. The two brothers went round and round, and Harley still took good care of Lisko. After all, he was the proud disciple of his own tutor. Lisko followed, and the two got to know the real power officials in Colorado. His pocket was also full of contact information. Lisko was still very popular. One would reject a young nominee for the Nobel Prize in Literature. As for losing to German writers, the old man had already reached Tianyan's time. In the eyes of outsiders, Lisko was destined to enter the Literary Hall of Fame. Lisko, like the chief of police, the chief of water and electricity, and state legislators, had a very careful chat. After all, these people may be used at any time. After the lively banquet was over, he, along with his senior brother, stuffed a check for $200,000 into the donation box. Donating too much is not good, and if you don't donate, you will lose face. 200,000 is the default baseline. I heard that this banquet was in the name of the African famine. Lisko felt that the Black brothers were too happy. So many people in the world care about whether they have enough to eat. As for whether the money can be in their hands, can it be solved? In their famine, the benevolent sees the benevolence, and the wise sees the wisdom, and you will never be able to help a person who wants to lie down. Lisko went out to the banquet, and declined his brother's proposal to go to the bar for a drink. When he first crossed the road, he went there a few times excitedly, but he was not interested in it after that, and the bars in the United States were very chaotic. "What are you doing?" All of them, like gathering together to leaves is a very common thing, even more exaggerated. One time, Lisko saw men and women having fun in a bar. "Good boy, These things are so outrageous. It was getting late. He went back to the hotel to wash up, and planned to rush back to Garrison early in the morning. The room was a very ordinary standard room. Although Lisko said that he was rich in capital and could enjoy luxurious services, he still couldn't change it for a while. When I come back, I can only slowly learn to adapt to this world of capital and money in the future. Lisko, who came home in the morning, yawned, threw his luggage into the living room, and went upstairs to catch up on sleep. This night, he slept until noon, and was woken up by the rooster's cry from downstairs. Plum! Lisko opened the window sleepily. Colt is back! Rooster shouted excitedly downstairs. Hey? When? Lisko is a little more energetic. He was the one who had the best relationship with Colt when he was a child. Because he was relatively taciturn, he was not so popular in the school. He was often bullied at school. I haven't seen each other for many years since I went out. Last night, Bo called you to come to my house for dinner today. Rooster was also very happy. His younger brother had been away from home for more than 10 years. Okay. I'll go after I wash up. Lisko was no longer sleepy, got up and changed his clothes, threw the dirty clothes into the washing machine, and went downstairs after washing. There was no one downstairs. Jasmine was helping in the ranch. Today's plan was to plant rye. The dog Mag was biting and tearing at the blanket under his kennel downstairs. Lisko stretched out his hand and hugged it. He held it up in front of his eyes and looked at him. Helyalu's eyes looked kind. Mag, McGonagall, Lisko called it, cultivating its perception of its own name. Lisko stroked its hair and walked to the basement with it. Several households in the United States have an underground storage room, and Lisko's family brought it with him. When he moved in, he brought back the various wines he had collected at the school. Opening the wooden door, he walked down the stairs. There were many shelves in it, and each shelf was neatly placed with a lot of wine. Whiskey, red wine, and white wine. Champagne. Lisko touched them one by one with his hands. Then took a bottle. Latour Castle 1990. This bottle of wine was given to him by his roommate. This roommate is not small, and he is the heir of a huge family in Greece. Lisko looked at it and decided to take this bottle. He went out of the storage room and went to the study to open the cigar cabinet and grab a few Cubans that he liked very much last time. By the time Lisko arrived at the Bogia Ranch, it was already very lively. Colt was a star in the town and a rugby player who came out of here. Everyone expected him to join a first-class club. Lisko nodded to greet everyone, handed the wine and Cuban to the rooster beside him, then smiled and raised his hand to make a fist. Hey Colt! The two bumped into fists and hugged as soon as they pulled together. Colt was a little taller than Lisko, with curly yellow hair, a white face and no beard, and he was wearing sportswear. You really surprised me. I thought you would become a lawyer, a Wall Street financier, a teacher, but I never thought you would become a writer. Colt was also very happy to see his long-lost playmate, but also a little bit sad. In his opinion, Lisko's younger brother, who had been running behind his back then, has achieved such a high level of achievement, but he has been without a job since being laid off by a third-rate club. He can only live by being a sparring coach for the school football team. Rooster was very happy next to him. Our invincible iron triangle finally got together. The hunting season is coming in a few days. Would you like to repeat our adventure again? Of course. Lisko and Colt both smiled. When they were in junior high school, the three of them would go to the mountains to hunt in groups every year during the hunting season. Their secret bases were two hunting observation houses in the mountains, where they stayed so many memories and laughter. The three of Lisko continued their meeting together, and the party began. Bose kept showing his craftsmanship and grilled steak. Maggie came back from the tavern on the day her youngest son came back, mixing salad on the side. Lisko was eating steak, picked up the wine glass and touched Colt, what are you going to do when you come back this time? Why don't you go? Bo's getting old. Cold hesitated, I'm still thinking about it. Lisko knew that he was stubborn, but he didn't refute. Gory is getting married, and her fiancé is a lawyer. Cold's expression darkened. For him, apart from missing his family and friends this time, what he most wanted to see was Gory. Back then, for the club's solicitation, despite his family's objections and without informing Gory, he packed his bags and ran away secretly. After so many years, he still felt ashamed of Gory. Is that so? I thought she was already married, and I haven't seen her since I came back. Lisko has nothing to do with Cold's stubbornness. He has been like this since he was a child. She's very happy now. You should think about it clearly. You should be aware of this kind of relationship. It's been so many years, and meeting each other is also a friend. After the excitement, the rooster took Lisko and Cold to visit the ranch. The grass seeds have already been planted. It is the imperial bamboo grass. This forage grass contains 17 kinds of amino acids. It is the most popular in recent years. It can be harvested 12 times a year. The planting of rye has been completed by 2/3, and it can be harvested tomorrow. At the end, Jasmine also started a poultry farm, bought some chickens and ducks, and the vegetables have been processed to suit the season. The rooster talked about his work in an eloquent and straightforward manner, and Cold felt a little surprised, as if he didn't get to know your brother. Rooster, you impress me, you really make a good cowboy. Hearing this, Rooster felt a little resentful. I have been helping at home since I didn't go to school. You have been running for more than 10 years, and I have taught Bo a lesson every day at home for more than 10 years. Cold was a little ashamed. He didn't think so much when he ran. Sorry, brother. He stretched out his hand and hugged the cock. Rooster was silent for a while, and then patted him. It's okay, you are my brother, and now our family is together again. The two brothers were as good as ever and went home with their arms around them. Lisko was amused by these two brothers who seemed a little naive. Lisko got home, went to the study and opened the wall cabinet. Inside were a revolver, a Glock pistol, and a Remington M887 shotgun. These things are standard for ranchers. Lisko took out the gun oil and wiped every gun well, held Remington and took aim, then counted the remaining bullets. After a rough look, there were still 100 or so rounds left, enough for one hunt. The voice of the US banning guns has been shouting for many years, but no one has been able to act. In recent years, it is not only the promotion of arms companies, but also the American people themselves. They have become accustomed to taking up arms to defend their families. Lisko's gun license was obtained very early, and he occasionally went to the club to shoot targets. From the beginning, he was obsessed with it, but it gradually calmed down. When you have something within your reach, you gradually don't like it that much. When I first accepted the ranch, I bought a few and put them at home. There are deep mountains behind the ranch. Occasionally, there will be incidents of wolves attacking the ranch and biting people and animals. Lisko sat at the desk and read the Post news, and climbed the wall to enter the domestic network to see it. Now the domestic network is developing rapidly. Fortunately, I have received information from domestic companies. The companies arranged by Lisko have already invested, like what the famous bat, as well as some companies that you remember. The investment went very smoothly, and no company would reject an American investment company that could help you to go public without fighting for rights and hand over the management of shares to the existing managers. Lisko calculated for a while, and estimated that after 10 years, his assets could easily be ranked in the top 5. Fortunately, when he started the company, he had already registered a shell in a place overseas. People can find the boss behind the scenes, be innocent, and enjoy life in a low-key manner. After hesitating, the agent surging again, Lisko drank the cheap tea he bought last time, lying on the rocking chair and flipping through the book. Although many brilliant writers have disappeared from this world, more writers that Lisko does not know have also emerged. Looking through some unfamiliar literary works, Lisko also found many particularly talented works here. Li Ke just flipped through it and indulged in it. Before he knew it was getting dark, Jasmine stopped when he went upstairs and called him to eat. Dinner was fried pork chops, and Jasmine's craftsmanship was quite good. With the thick soup, Lisko feasted on it. The next day, Lisko packed up his hunting gear early, a jacket, trouser legs, handmade cowhide boots bought from the town, a reston on his back, a revolver around his waist, and a Swiss pair of leggings. Sig special dagger. Picking up the luggage, there are some emergency medicines and serums, as well as some compressed biscuits and a stainless steel water bottle. He has to prepare for the result of hunting for food without returning empty-handed. This kind of thing has happened many times in his past experience. When Lisko went out, he encountered Rooster and Colt, who were also fully armed, and everyone laughed when they saw that everyone was bulging the same. "Rooster, go and drive a pickup." The three got into the car and quickly arrived at the foot of the mountain. Colt stretched out his arms. "I haven't hunted for a long time." "Then you can aim at the point later, maybe this time you will be at the bottom." The rooster teased. "No, and Lisko, I think I'm better than someone who sits at a desk and writes every day." Lisko smiled. "I often go to gun clubs to practice guns." The three noisily walked into the woods and soon reached their destination. There are two wooden houses standing in the woods, which were built a long time ago by Bo and Lisko's father, two hunting enthusiasts. This is also the place where Lisko and the three loved to come when they were young. This place was collapsed by a wild boar last year, and the wooden board I was looking for was repaired again. Rooster triumphantly asked for credit. The three picked up firewood and lit the fire in the house with hot water. Colt climbed up to the roof to observe, as before, and set up his gun. Bo's telescope is still so good. He held the telescope with many scratches on it. The green paint on the edge had worn off a lot. This was a souvenir that Bo brought back from the army. Lisko and Rooster shared a room, set up their guns in the house, and chewed on a pack of compressed biscuits. Not long after, the signal came, and Colt tapped on the eaves. The three of them looked forward intently, and a group of wild ducks staggered out of the jungle. Bang, 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 bang. Colt shot first, knocking down the leading duck, while Lisko and the rooster in the back also took out their pistols and shot. After a while of shooting, a wild duck fell on the ground. "Whoever hits the most must be me." Colt jumped down from the roof and shouted with a gun. "It must be me, you didn't hit anything except the first shot." The rooster pouted in disdain. Lisko looked at the two arguing with a funny look. "I packed one and baked it. I'm a little hungry." Colt pulled out the saber in his trouser leg, picked one up, and went to the water. Lisko and the rooster were picking up the dead ducks, tying them up and throwing them into the bag, waiting to go back to distribute the prey. I haven't seen it for many years, and Colt's craftsmanship has not left anything behind. The duck was cleaned up, the rooster took it, stabbed the duck a few times with a knife, and smeared it with salt and spices. It was wrapped in large leaves, smeared with mud, and thrown into the stove. The three of them were waiting for the food in front of the stove, while recalling the past. Suddenly, the rooster stopped gushing laughter, listened carefully, and immediately grabbed the gun. The faces of Lisko and Colt also changed quickly. Hum hum, the sound got closer and closer, and they all heard the sound of a wild boar, and the three guns were aimed at the sound. The wild grass in the woods moved, and after a while, its head appeared, and a wild boar the size of an adult waist stuck its head out with its tusks. The rooster took a deep breath. Although this was in the mountains, as more and more people hunted in recent years, large game like this was basically rare. The three of them previously hunted mostly wild ducks and pheasants. For some hares, the biggest prey is no more than a four-horned elk. The three of Lisko held their breaths and looked at the approaching wild boar. "Head off!" Lisko shouted first and pulled the trigger of the shotgun first. The three kept firing towards the front. Bang bang bang, Lisko shot out all the bullets in the gun at once, looked at the motionless wild boar, and stopped the two who were loading. Died. The three of them watched for a while, and found that the wild boar's head was beaten with bullet holes, and blood was dripping all over its body. The hands of the three of them trembled a little, and they exhaled heavily. The rooster struggled to take out a few cans of beer from the backpack. Ha ha ha! They looked at each other's embarrassed appearance wet with sweat, and laughed heartily. This has set a new record for our prey. We actually shot a wild boar. Colt was so excited, the three of them calmed down and ran to see the wild boar. The black hair was like a steel needle, and the body was covered with thick mud. Fortunately, the three of them shot at the head, otherwise the wild boar would not have died so easily if they hit the muddy body. Looking at the size, this wild boar weighs at least 200 kilograms. Having obtained enough goods, the three of them had no intention of continuing here. At the same time, they were also afraid that the blood on the ground would attract wolves. The rooster the limbs of the wild boar with the rope he carried with him. The three found a thick wooden stick to stir up the wild boar, put out the fire, and walked down the mountain. Otherwise, we'll chop off the pig's head, chop off the limbs, and throw away the rest. This wild boar is too big for us to carry down the mountain. The two of them thought about it and agreed to the proposal. With the pig's head, they already satisfied their show-off heart, and they could also taste the meat with the limbs. The three people who reached an agreement quickly finished packing, and refused to share the meat with Lisko, and took 2 fangs for collection. When he got home, he changed his sweat-soaked clothes. Lisko soaked wild boar teeth in hot water in the kitchen, and brushed the surface with white vinegar. Soon the 2 fangs were as white as new. Lisko wiped it clean with a tissue and put it in the showcase in the study. As soon as he sat down to rest, the phone rang, and when Lisko saw the call, he knew it was his long-winded manager. "Lee, how are you doing today?" Lisko rolled his eyes. "If it wasn't for your call, everything would be fine." "Haha, well, I know you're annoyed by that, but I still have to ask, how is the new book? The editors at Random House have been blocking my office door recently, and they've issued a royalty for this book 18%, Lisko thought about it for a while. This royalty is considered good in the American literary and art world. Newcomers often only get 5%. Lisko has worked well with them in recent years, and Langdon's boss and his mentor are old friends. The agent, Lisko, was introduced by his brother, a columnist. He has worked together for several years without any mistakes. He is usually a good person and takes good care of Lisko. "Lisko, tomorrow, I just finished, I want to check it again." "Really, reading www.yuyuganshu.com is great. I will immediately notify the publishing house to prepare. They have already prepared the cover and promotional poster." Lisko was a little disgusted and kept the phone away from him. Lisko was in his 40s this year, and he has made a lot of money with Lisko in recent years. Lisko turned on the computer, flipped through the finished manuscript, checked it again, and Emil also received the cover of the novel from Lisko. With a hooded boy standing with his back in a golden wheat field and the sky painted blue, this cover fits Lisko's aesthetic in general. "Lisko, the cover is great. The manuscript will be mailed to you tomorrow." Lisko replied to the email and went to the kitchen by herself. Jasmine has been busy with the ranch for the past few days. She asked Lisko if she wanted to come back to cook dinner. Seasoning from Chinatown. He took a crucian carp from the side, which was caught in the lake in the ranch. The cowboys had taken it and thrown it away, but Lisko asked him to come. Put the onion, ginger, and garlic in the hot oil, cook for a while, put the processed fish into the oil pan and fry on both sides, add water and boil, so that the boiled fish soup is white. The fish soup is simmered for an hour. By this time, it is already a milky white fish soup. The noodles are machine-pressed noodles that he bought in Chinatown. Lisko was a northerner in his previous life and loved pasta. His ex-girlfriend taught him how to cook noodles in fish soup. The deliciousness of the fish soup. The noodles were slowly getting cooked. Lisko put in some small green vegetables and chopped up a few pieces of red peppers. This pot looks very nice, with red peppers, white fish soup, and green vegetables. Lisko turned off the fire and tasted the long-lost taste. Tears could not stop flowing. Although he is now wealthy, carefree, and has status, occasionally he still feels lonely by himself. The next day, Lisko got up, printed and packed up the manuscript, bound it in a craft paper bag, and drove to Garrison. Parking the pickup at the door of the tavern, Lisko put the cowhide bag into the mailbox on the side of the road and pushed open the door of the tavern. The town life here is always slow. Just after the morning, there were already drunkards sitting in twos and threes in the pub, some discussing the ball game on the TV on the wall, some scolding politicians, and a few wretched people making dirty jokes. Maggie was wiping her glasses at the bar as always. "Morning, Maggie." Lisko stepped forward and hugged her. "Have you been home recently?" Maggie took a bottle of beer from the back counter. "No, I've been separated from Beau for many years, and I think my RV is great to live in." After Maggie and Beau separated, she bought a second-hand RV in the backyard of the tavern. "You're not going to stay for a few days when Colt comes back?" Lisko declined the beer handed over and poured a glass of milk from the counter. "No, if Colt wants to accompany me, come here. I have an extra bed in my RV." Maggie smiled mischievously. "Haven't you eaten breakfast?" Lisko had finished drinking the milk and wiped the milk stains from the corners of his mouth. "No, I got up and came to town. I went to mail a document today." "Then I'll make you a sandwich. It's the one you liked most when you were in school." Maggie's eyes were full of doting. Lisko's mother died very early, and she often slept in Beau's house when she was a child. "Eat less of Maggie's breakfast." Maggie put down the glass and went into the room to make breakfast, while Lisko helped greet the guests at the counter. "Mark Twain, have a drink." The town's alcoholic Herman shouted at the bar. "Herman, you still owe 5 drinks." Lisko turned to look at the ledger beside the bar. "The relief will be settled in a few days. Get me a glass first." "A good day starts with whiskey." Herman raised his eyebrows. Lisko shook his head speechlessly, poured a glass of whiskey, wiped the edge of the glass, and stepped back in front of him. "I asked for it." Herman hurriedly took it and drank most of it in one gulp. "Thank you, I think I'm feeling a lot better with my hangover now. I don't know who bumped me into the curb yesterday, but it froze me so badly this morning." Herman is also a good cowboy in middle age. When he was old and unmarried, he began to drink heavily. He got a disability certificate from someone. He received a subsidy from the continent every month. On the way, many such drunks and homeless people in the United States wake up from nowhere every day. Maggie quickly made the sandwich. Lisko poured another glass of milk, found a seat and sat down, took a bite and the taste was still in memory, and gave a thumbs up in Maggie's direction. The door of the tavern was pushed open, and a blonde girl walked in. Her bumpy figure caught everyone's attention. The drunkards in the tavern blew their whistle one after another. "Have a glass of whiskey." Sitting on her seat, she touched her long curly hair. She wore a plaid jacket and tight jeans underneath, and her wheat-colored skin gleamed in the light. Although it looks a little immature, Lisko recognized this stunner at a glance, the heroine of Transformers Megan Fox. Lee Kay went to search for her information after watching Transformers back then. She is only about 20 years old this year, and she has not yet played the role that made her popular. Now she should still be a third-rate actor. At that time, Lisko was attracted by her when he watched Transformers. The motorcycle girl she played was wearing denim shorts, showing a small waist and a hip, and opening the front cover of the car in the dusky sunset to check the clip, and was also caught. Lisko took a screenshot and made a computer screen display. "Just don't know why she should be working hard in Hollywood is now in the small town of Garrison." Lisko wiped his mouth after eating the sandwich, returned the milk glass to Maggie, took out a Franklin, and handed it to Maggie. "I'll take this one." He pointed to Megan, who was drinking, and Maggie took the money with a smile on her face. Megan raised her head and glanced at this handsome and delicate mixed-race guy. His temperament was incompatible with this tavern. "Megan Fox." She raised her glass and shook it in salute. Lisko took the beer that Maggie brought over and touched the glass. "I know you, Hope and Faith, you are an actor." Megan was a little surprised. She didn't expect someone to recognize her, an unknown third-rate actor. And Holiday in the Sun and The Prom Queen. Lisko mentioned 2 more films she participated in. "God, how do you know? I just played a small role without a name." "You know, you're so charming. I saw you at a glance in the film. I think you're more attractive than the main character. You will definitely become popular in the future." Lisko's rainbow farts came one after another. Megan has always been in a low mood and began to overflow. She did not expect that she would be noticed as a small supporting role. Recently, her acting career has been getting bleak. She is still considering whether to give up acting and return to her own. In the model industry of the old line. "But you're supposed to shine in Hollywood, how come you're in Garrison? Are you filming around here?" Lisko asked suspiciously. Talking about this, Megan felt a little depressed. "I've been walking around recently, my aunt lives here, I came here to relax, my career has not been going well recently, and there is no company looking for me to film, I may have to go back and continue model." Lisko picked up the bottle and clinked glasses with her. "Don't be discouraged, I'm sure you'll have a chance soon." Megan only thought that he was comforting herself, and accepted his encouragement a little happily. Only Lisko knew that soon the Transformers crew would notice her and ask her to play, and then she would walk into everyone's sight, bright red. "My name is Lisko, I am a farmer, are you going to visit my farm?" Lisko sent an invitation. Megan thought for a while, looked at Lisko's delicate face carefully, and felt a little throbbing at him. "Okay, I just happen to have nothing else to do." Lisko said goodbye to Maggie and walked out of the tavern with Megan in a joke. The pickup quickly drove back to the ranch. Lisko parked the car in the garage and took Megan back to the villa. During the conversation on the road, I learned that Megan's uncle opened a farm machinery shop in Garrison. Lisko knew as soon as he heard that the ranch had just opened and the seeds were bought at his home. You reading www.yuyugonshu.com. What to drink? Water? Or coffee? Liskola opened the refrigerator. Megan looked around. Although it was a ranch villa, the decoration was also very delicate. There were some Chinese ink paintings on the walls, and the kitchen utensils were also very famous and expensive brands. Coffee. Megan touched the fabric of the sofa. "Are you really a farmer? Farmers can't earn so much money to buy these expensive decorations. The expensive price of the home is found." Lisko watched her look around. "I'm still a writer." Megan thought about Lisko's somewhat familiar name, and suddenly looked at him in surprise. "Are you that Lisko? The one nominated by Nobel?" Writers and entertainment circles have always been deeply involved. Lisko sold the film and television rights of 2 books to Hollywood Warner's for adaptation. I heard that Warner's invested a total of $30 million in the filming. However, Lisko didn't pay attention after selling the copyright, and Megan must have heard of it in the entertainment industry. "Yes, but Nobel failed." Lisko handed her the ground coffee. "Try it, this is German ground coffee from a friend." Megan tasted it shallowly. "Cappuccino, it's very mellow." Lisko smiled and drank a little. "I heard that your 2 books have been completed, and the heroines are both starring Jennifer Connelly. I haven't paid attention to this issue. The best way to express a work is in words. Adapting it into a film may expand its influence and lose the charm of words." Megan looked at Lisko, a great writer in his 20s. He was outstanding in appearance, restrained and rich, and his literati temperament was also very attractive. Want to go out for a walk? Maybe you have ridden a horse. Lisko put down the coffee and sent an invitation. Okay. Megan also became happy. The two walked out of the villa. The noon sun shone on the pasture, and everything was covered with a golden coat. Lisko put the sun hat he had specially brought on Megan's head and helped her fasten it. Megan looked at Lisko, who bowed his head to help the rope earnestly. His fair profile shone in the sunlight, and his facial features were as deep as sculpted. Megan knew that she had been attracted to him. After tying the ropes, Lisko and Megan looked at each other and smiled. They had pulled their hands together at some point. The blue lake was in the middle of the ranch, which was also the main source of water for the ranch. David is riding a quarter to drive the cattle. These cattle are Brahman cattle. This kind of cattle is very common in the United States. It has huge sarcoid on the back of the neck and looks strange. It is not suitable for feeding conditions. It was good and the meat quality was great. On the right side of the lake is the staff dormitory of the ranch. Each floor can accommodate 4 families. It is a simple three-story building, and now even one floor is not full. Next to the dormitory are the stables, cow sheds, and warehouses. Cowboys live here so that they can deal with emergencies in the cow shed at any time. Behind the dormitory is a large field of rye that has just been sown. Automatic irrigation machines are inserted in it, and water is sprayed around from time to time. Lisko went to the barn and pulled out the white quarter, putting on brown harnesses. Come on, do you want to try? Megan passed her hand, and Lisko easily put her on the horse. Relax, don't force your legs, and pull the reins. Megan was a little nervous, for fear that the horse would run out all of a sudden. She took a deep breath and looked forward. The suddenly elevated vision made her a little excited. It's so far away. Lisko gently shook the reins for her, and the white horse moved slowly. Megan was a little frightened. I don't dare, I want to come down. Lisko quickly stretched out his arms to hug her. His feet fell to the ground. She felt a little more secure, grabbed Lisko's clothes and took a deep breath. Lisko was a little amused. He turned and got on his horse. I'll take you, do you want to come? Megan looked up at the man on the white horse and extended her hand. Lisko grabbed her again with force, and the two pressed against each other on the horse's back. Lisko smelled the aroma in front of him and pulled on the reins. Shaking slightly, the white horse began to move forward slowly. After walking a distance, Lisko knocked off the horse's belly with his heel. White began to run. Lisko surrounded Megan, and the speed began to speed up. The two circled the lake, and behind it was a field of lavender. The purple flowers could not be seen at a glance, and Megan also shouted in surprise. Oh my God, there is still a sea of flowers here, it's so beautiful. Megan looked back at Lisko, turned around and wrapped her arms around his neck. The closer they got closer, Lisko could feel her breathing. A soft patch pressed against his lips. He tugged at the reins. The horse slowly began to stop, and he began to respond. The golden sunshine, the purple lavender flower sea, and the two people hugging and kissing on the white horse. David glanced at it, smiled and drove the cattle farther. I'm out of breath. Megan broke free and hit Lisko lightly with her fist. Lisko smiled and pondered. Your kiss was sweet. Under Megan's blushing coquettish anger, she rode back to the villa. The two had lunch together in the villa. Lisko's fried steak was very well received. Of course, all kinds of intimate contacts were indispensable during the period. Of course, the last step was still not reached. It was the first day that we met, so we couldn't proceed too fast. At the entrance of the Garrison Agricultural Machinery store, Lisko let go of Megan, who was panting from the kiss, and the two made an appointment to go shopping in Daschent tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Megan pushed Lisko away with a smile and turned into her aunt's house. Lisko looked at her seductive figure and drove home with some fascination. Just as the car drove out of Garrison Town, Lisko saw a man and a woman hugging and kissing on the side of the road. He whistled past, looked carefully in the rear-view mirror, and backed the car back. "Colt, golly, you two." Lisko was a little surprised. Colt was a little embarrassed. "Yes, we are together again." Gorley lowered her head and rubbed her toes on the side. Lisko took Colt aside. "Are you crazy? Did you know she's getting married?" Colt sternly said, "I know, but we still love each other," and Gorley said he would have a good talk with her fiancé. Lisko was speechless about their love. "Do Rooster and Bo know?" "I know, Golly spent the night at my house yesterday." Colt scratched his head. Lisko was silent for a while. He was not optimistic about the entanglement between the two of them. Colt was a more playful person. He felt that his mind was still a child, and he was an idealist. The fact that Golly is about to get married will make him scruples. But as their friends, if they can really face it together, Lisko can only wish. He stretched his fist and touched Colt's chest. "Let Gorley have a good talk with that lawyer. If anything goes wrong, remember to call me." After saying goodbye to Colt Golly, he went straight home. After Lisko finished packing, he came to the stable. This morning he remembered that he had not brushed the horse for so many days at home. This white horse it's always been when the cowboys brushed other horses. Lisko came to the stable with a bucket and tools. The white horse is eating grass in the shed. "Come on, eat a carrot." Lisko fed it fresh carrots from the kitchen. "What a good boy, come, let's take a bath and get our nails done." Lisko opened the shed door and led the white horse out. He first used a rubber brush to brush off the horse's hair. The horses like to bite each other. This is their way of communicating their feelings. There must be some shedding horsehair on their bodies. After brushing, use a stiff brush to clean up dust, and ponytails, hooves, and head are important parts to clean up. Then comb the tail hair and temple hair with a comb, and spray a little mosquito repellent while combing. In the end, I use a special knife and clip to clean the horse's hoof. The horse's hoof needs to be trimmed frequently, like human nails. If it is too long, it will affect the horse's running. After finishing everything, it was already night. Lisko was also sweating profusely. After dinner, he processed the progress report sent by the investment company, and also notified the agent to pay attention to receiving the manuscript. Reading www.yuyugonshu.com went to bed with anticipation for tomorrow. Early the next morning, Lisko was picking clothes after breakfast. He treated this date as a very important matter. It had been 2 years since his last relationship failed. Finally, there is a girl who makes him throbbing. In the end, I found a suit, which was custom-made in a handmade suit shop when I participated in a literary forum in the UK. It had a purple outer lining, close-fitting lines, and a pair of black casual leather shoes. Lisko looked in the mirror and still felt quite satisfied. Came to the garage with a Mercedes-Benz commercial car. He made a reservation in advance for the famous French restaurant in Diskenk yesterday. The car soon arrived at Garrison Town, and Lisko avoided the familiar ridicule and held a bouquet of roses that Jasmine had specially arranged for him. The roses were picked from the Bogia ranch next door, and they were still carrying fresh roses. Dewdrops, which Maggie used to plant, Bo has been taking care of. Soon, Megan went downstairs as scheduled. She also attended in advance according to Lisko's notice. She was wearing a dress that looked very solemn. This delicate face is even more alluring. "Morning, you are more beautiful today." Lisko handed the flower to Megan. Megan lowered her head and sniffed, then leaned forward and kissed him. Lisko helped her open the car door, leaned on the threshold, helped her fasten her seat belt, and entered the cab himself. "My queen, how is your night service?" Lisko teased. "Not bad, Knightley, we can set off." Megan lowered her head and kissed the back of his hand. "Of course, Her Majesty." Tan laughed and started the car, leaving a silver bell-like laughter along the way. Colorado is mainly dominated by minerals and agriculture, and its economic strength is not outstanding in the United States, so it is not like New York and Los Angeles are full of restaurants. In the state capital of Denver, there is such a restaurant called Boulder. This restaurant not only serves exquisite Italian cuisine, such as quail dumplings, but also has the title of Master Sommelier. Only 149 people in the world can hold this title. With a rich wine list and exquisite snacks, it has been on the top 50 American restaurant list for many times. It is also the most famous restaurant in Colorado. Eating at this restaurant must be made in advance, but yesterday Lisko found the business card he received from the last charity party when he was sorting things out. It happened to have the contact information of the restaurant owner. After Lisko called to explain the situation, got an answer quickly. The car stopped at the entrance of the restaurant. The overall decoration of the restaurant is fashionable and simple. The dark red and white signs on the outer walls reveal elegance everywhere. The sign of this restaurant is a branched branch, which Lisko did not understand. What's the meaning? He handed the car keys to the waiter at the door, stretched out his arm, and Megan smiled and held it. Lisko, there is an appointment, he motioned to the manager who stepped forward. Hello, the boss has explained it, please sit here. The manager gestured respectfully. Lisko followed him through the hall and stopped at a partition, which was decorated in a semicircle, just enough for two people to have a meal without being disturbed by the crowd. Thank you, what's the chef's recommendation today? Lisko helped Megan open the dining chair and set the tableware. Today we recommend filet mignon, special polenta for dessert, and freshly arrived tuna. Lisko poured a glass of water, took a sip and rinsed his mouth. Just follow this, and bring me a bottle of 95-year-old Margaux. The manager went down to make arrangements. Lisko raised his head and explained to Megan, the 95-year-old red wine of Chateau Margaux is top-notch, with tangy blackberry and blackcurrant aromas, smooth and lively with thick and delicate fruit aromas, just like today's wines. Like you, it not only has the complexity of 1986, but also the elegance of 1990, and the Maya winery is 1,000 years old. Megan was amused by his compliment. It's hard for me to imagine that you are a writer and speak like a playboy. It's not correct to say that, Lisko immediately retorted. Writers have strong feelings to write attractive words. It doesn't mean that we care, we are also very loyal to life. Lisko pretended to be depressed after speaking. It's really sad that you have a prejudice against our views. Megan thought Lisko was very humorous, and soon the restaurant began to serve the meal. The exquisite steak exuded an attractive aroma. Lisko cut the steak and handed it to Megan, and took the one she did not cut. That one. Megan was moved by his ubiquitous attention to small details, and reached out to hold his hand. Lisko, thank you. In Hollywood, all you can see is betrayal, fame, and desire. She hasn't been cared so much for a long time. Lisko patted the back of her hand comfortingly. Hurry up, the steak in this restaurant is still very good. While eating, a man in a suit suddenly came over, and when he saw Lisko, he began to say hello. Lee, it's really you. I've been waiting for you in the restaurant a long time ago. Lisko recognized him as the owner of this restaurant and a literature lover. He dragged Lisko to discuss literary works for a long time at the charity party. He also showed great enthusiasm by calling him yesterday to make an appointment. Ben, why are you here? The taste here is great. By the way, this is Megan Fox, my friend. Lisko introduced Megan to him. Oh, I said what kind of beauty would make Lisko call me to make a restaurant reservation at night. After seeing it, I found that it was better than I thought. Hello, I'm the owner of this restaurant, Ben. Ben's exaggerated joke made Megan a little shy. Hello, I'm Megan. Lee, I heard that your new book has been written. Is it still the previous genre? When will it be released? You know, since I heard you talk about it last time, I have been thinking about the plot behind it. Lisko couldn't help laughing and laughing. The reminders were everywhere, so he had to comfort him. Ben, I have already sent the manuscript, and the publisher will release it in the near future. I can send you a hardcover version. Really? Ben was a little surprised, he really liked Lisko's works. Okay, I won't interrupt your meal with this beautiful Ms. Megan, remember to promise me the hardcover version, Lee. Ben said goodbye in a timely manner, and arranged for the manager to deliver dessert after dinner. After the sweet two had dinner, they were about to go to the movies. There was a movie theater next to the restaurant, and Lisko lined up to buy a large portion of Coke and popcorn. Megan, what are we looking at? Megan looked up at the poster on the wall of the cinema. I've seen Pirates of the Caribbean Part 2 some time ago, Cars is a cartoon, and the X-Men don't like it very much, why don't we go to the Da Vinci Code? I heard that the plot is very good, and it is based on a best-selling book, and it has a lot of church tropes in it, and many of my friends think it is true. Lisko reluctantly watched the latest horror movie Silent Hill next to him. He was still a little careful. He wanted to watch the frightened Megan throw himself into his arms for comfort. Okay, I've always wanted to take a look. Dan Brown is also a very good writer. I've always wanted to learn the worldview of the works of my predecessors. Megan also saw Lisko's thoughts. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com raised her head and kissed him on the cheek. Let's go, I bought the tickets, the movie is about to start. Lisko recalled the softness just now, and responded with a smirk, okay, come right away. The Da Vinci Code is a dark horse that rushed out in 2006. The film mainly tells the story of a murder case in the Louvre Museum, which alerted symbol expert Robert Langdon. Langdon and the granddaughter of the deceased Sophie were in the process of solving the case. As the case deepens, Langdon discovers that all the decrypted passwords are hidden in Leonardo da Vinci's works. Lisko has been close to Dan Brown for a long time. Dan Brown's works integrate elements of popular novels such as murder, horror, detective, deciphering suspense, and pursuit romance. He always uses high-tech knowledge culture to merge in conflict with ancient mysterious knowledge culture, which has formed his unique writing habit. The narrative rhythm of his novels is always interlocking, and the number of turns and surprises always make readers guess not finished. The film is starred by the popular Tom Hanks and the heroine Audrey Tautou. At the beginning, Megan was still complaining that she was eliminated in the primary selection of the heroine. As the plot accelerated, she became obsessed with Audrey. Ari's superb acting. The lingering kiss between the hero and heroine in Hollywood movies that Lisko expected did not appear. Lisko breathed a sigh of relief, but was also a little disappointed. The male protagonist just restrained and kissed the forehead of the heroine. From the plot, this kind of the handling is just right, the age difference between the male and female protagonists is a lot. If it is the age of Jesus, men and women have feelings for each other, and the bold pursuit of freedom is a must to get rid of the old cage. It is a descendant of Jesus, which adds a sense of inviolability of the gods, so the way the director handles it here is more appropriate.